Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Hello there, everybody. How you doing? We're here today talking about two things, really: Scottish independence and true crime. When I first started talking about Scottish independence on my Doctor Who channel and stuff, I didn't know that this intersection was going to happen, that this crossover was potential crossover was going to be possible. But this situation we're going to be talking about today is clearly to do with Scottish independence, the issue of it, what's been going on over in the UK regarding it for a very long time, and some of the dirty deeds that have gone down. But it also ventures into the true crime and criminal justice area, which is where my other channel, or my original channel, is where that kind of started out, with criminal justice reform, true crime, and that's basically that's kind of where I started at before I got into Scottish independence. So for those of you here that are seeing this on the Doctor Who channel, because I'm uploading this to both channels, those of you seeing this on the Doctor Who channel, when I mentioned the Wrecking Crew, I'm talking about a team of researchers that kind of helped me out and we look into the true crime and criminal justice issues, like Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey from the Netflix documentary. We also have done things about the staircase. I've done things about OJ and various other things. So the Wrecking Crew is just a group of researchers that we like to research some of these true crimes issues. So the idea here is that the curious tale of Willie MacRae may be interesting to some of the Wrecking Crew, and so maybe we can look into this possibly a little bit deeper. So as I said, I'll be uploading this to both of my channels, and hopefully maybe we'll see what we might be able to help dig up about this, because it's very curious. It would appear that Willie MacRae was taken out because he was such a strong force for the SNP independence, and because he was such a strong campaigner for anti-nuclearization, basically. So he was not popular with the establishment, you can say. Anyways, there are going to be some things in this article, admissions from MPs, ministers, that MI5 was given some carte blanche kind of, basically lack of restriction and almost complete immunity for some of the things that they could do in Wales and Ireland and Scotland. You're going to see proof of these things. I'm going to go through a few different articles in the process of this, just to give you guys a full picture of what has obviously gone down here with Willie MacRae. You're going to find out things like where the murder weapon was compared to Willie MacRae when they say it was just a suicide. There's just a lot to take in. So I hope you guys will be interested in this. Wrecking Crew, I hope maybe we can possibly try to dig into this. Maybe even get some of those folks out there who we know are good at doing FOIA requests, and see what we can maybe try to request from the UK regarding this, and maybe see what we can turn up. But that's what I'm hoping to do. So if the Wrecking Crew out there is interested, also anybody in Scotland, if you're interested in pointing me in the direction of information regarding Willie MacRae, do so, obviously. I do caution anybody in the UK getting too involved in this little investigation we're going to do here, only because I know MI5 is involved, and so I wouldn't want anybody there in the UK to run into any kind of adverse difficulty by, rattling trees on this. But I leave it up to everybody's own discretion to choose to do as they will. But did want to offer that little caution, obviously. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and get to it. This is going to be from an article called The Curious Tale of Willie MacRae. But that article in it had links to other articles that help explain further, or at least back up and show you where the ministers made these statements and that sort of thing, so that you understand what they're referring to before the article proceeds. So here we go. Hope you guys enjoy it. All right, this is The Curious Tale of Willie MacRae. So here we go. We're going to go through this article. It's pretty well researched. We're going to look at some of the links so that you can understand some of the facts that they're pointing out that have come out in recent years. So anyway, the curious tale of Willie MacRae. Yesterday we learned that MI5 were historically given the authority to commit criminal acts on British and Irish citizens without the ability to hold those people who committed crimes to account. Upon reading the following tweets from the chief political correspondent at Channel 4 News and the subsequently released heavily redacted information, a couple of names spring to mind, but the main name I wish to focus on is Willie MacRae. The information typed below is all open source and gathered from sources online. Before I delve into the world of Willie MacRae's unfortunate death, let me just quote a couple of paragraphs. The SNP was spied on by British Secret Service agents. Previously classified government files seen by Scotland on Sunday have finally proved. Claims of surveillance of nationalist politicians by intelligence officers have circulated for years, but the new papers provide the first incontrovertible evidence that the state spied on the SNP in the 1950s. Remember the MacRae report, right, folks? I just covered that. That was in the 70s. So if it was happening in the 50s, it was most likely happening in the 70s. Agents from MI5 and Special Branch infiltrated the party as part of a campaign to undermine support for Scottish independence, the papers show. Okay, so this is from The Guardian. The SNP was spied on by British Secret Service agents. Previously classified government files seen by Scotland on Sunday have finally proved. Claims of surveillance of nationalist politicians by intelligence officers have circulated for years, but the new papers provide the first incontrovertible evidence that the state spied on the SNP in the 1950s. Agents from MI5 and Special Branch infiltrated the party as part of a campaign to undermine support for Scottish independence, the papers show. The revelations have put First Minister Alex Salmond, who in opposition complained about closed government files on the SNP, under pressure to close a legal loophole that allows the Secret Services to intercept the calls of Scottish parliamentarians. The files, which have been opened and placed in the UK National Archives in Kew, I hope I'm saying that right, show that throughout the 1950s, Special Branch officers posed as nationalist supporters and attended party meetings and rallies. The dossiers contain first-hand accounts from numerous unnamed agents of party meetings and also include names of SNP members and sympathizers. They also provide transcripts of speeches and give particular attention to members they believed were on the more radical or militant wing of the party. The dozens of documents also contain the remarkable claim that Dr. Robert McIntyre, the then SNP leader, wanted Scotland to pull out of the UK and to apply to be the 49th state of the United States of America. A number of present-day MSPs, including former SNP leadership contender Alex Neil, claim MI5 still monitors pro-independence politicians and may even have stepped up surveillance since the nationalists won power in May. In July 2015, the below was written in The Guardian. David Cameron is under pressure to justify a secret decision by spy chiefs at GCHQ that authorizes eavesdropping on politicians from the devolved legislatures in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish First Minister, and other Scottish, Welsh, and Northern Irish politicians on Friday urged the Prime Minister to protect the privacy of parliamentarians from these three nations, after it emerged that GCHQ had introduced new internal guidelines to allow the monitoring of communications by members of the legislatures, even though those rules bar the agency from monitoring MPs at Westminster. So, as can be seen from the above statements, it would appear that MI5 have actively been involved in Scottish political matters for decades, and Westminster has enabled and admitted it. Willie MacRae, born the May 18th of 1923, died April 7th of 1985, was a Scottish lawyer, orator, naval officer, politician, and anti-nuclear campaigner. In the Second World War, he served in the British Army and then in the Royal Indian Navy. He supported the Indian independence movement and for much of his life was active in the Scottish National Party. MacRae is remembered for his mysterious death, in which his car crashed in a remote part of the Scottish Highlands and he was found shot in the head with a revolver. The official verdict was undetermined. Willie was an active member of the Scottish National Party and an anti-nuclear campaigner. He was active outside Scotland too, having served in the Royal Indian Navy and becoming active in the campaign for independence for India. He was also the author of the Maritime Law of Israel and emeritus professor at the University of Haifa. After his death, a forest of 3,000 trees was planted in his honor in Israel to mark his death. On the fateful day of his untimely death, Willie left his Glasgow flat at 18:30 on the 5th of April, 1985, to spend a week at his cottage at Ardelve near Dorney. He was not seen again until the following morning around 10, when two Australian tourists saw his Volvo estate car lying in a moor a short distance from the junction of the A87 and the A887 roads, about 30 yards from the roadway. Straddling a berm I think is what they mean, the tourists flagged down the next car to pass by, which turned out to be driven by a doctor, Dorothy Messer, accompanied by her fiancé as well as David Coots, a Dundee SNP counselor who knew Willie MacRae very well. It was discovered that Willie was in the car. He was not wearing a seatbelt. Another car was sent to call the emergency services. Dr. Messer examined Willie and found that he was still alive and breathing. She noted that one of his pupils was dilated, indicating the possibility of brain damage, and estimated that he had been in that state for 10 hours. Willie was removed by ambulance to Regmore Hospital in Inverness, accompanied by Dr. Messer. On arrival, it was decided to transfer him to Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. At Aberdeen, it was realized that the incident was more than a road accident. 6 hours after he had been found, a nurse washing his head discovered what appeared to be the entry wound of a gunshot. An X-ray confirmed that Willie MacRae had been shot above his right ear and a bullet was detected in his head. His brain was severely damaged and his vital functions very weak. The following day, on Sunday, 7th of April, after consultation with his next of kin, Willie MacRae's life support machine was switched off. An investigation into Willie's death was headed by Chief Superintendent Andrew Lester of Northern CID. Despite no weapon having yet been found, Willie's car was moved at 12 o'clock on the 7th of April. It later transpired that the police had kept no record of the precise location where the car had been found, and the position stated by them was later found to be 1 mile in error, and was corrected by a witness who had been present at the scene. A weapon was found the following day in the burn. I guess it's maybe it is burn. Sorry, over which the car had been discovered, 60 feet from the vehicle. It was a Smith & Wesson .45 revolver belonging to Willie MacRae, which had been fired twice. No fingerprints were found on the gun, despite MacRae not wearing gloves when he was found. Okay, few things here. Number one, he only had one gunshot wound. So I just wonder, you just wonder about this, because if he had a traffic accident, how did he end up shot in the head? Was getting shot in the head what caused the traffic accident? Although it was ruled at the time by authorities that Willie MacRae's death was a suicide, the official account has been disputed, some claiming that the distance of MacRae's car at which the gun was found and a lack of fingerprints on it rendered such a verdict not credible. Right? How the hell would Willie have been shooting himself with a gun that was 60 feet away? Hamish Watt, a Scottish Member of Parliament from 1974 to 1979, has been quoted as saying that Willie MacRae was assassinated for his too extensive study of NATO activities in Scotland. At the time of his death, he had been working to counter plans to dump nuclear waste from Dounreay into the sea and on land at Mulkwarker in South Ayrshire. Hope I said that right, folks. Sorry. Due to his house being burgled on repeated occasions prior to his death, he had taken to carrying a briefcase containing copies of documents related to all of his work. The briefcase was kept with him at all times. However, his briefcase was never found following his death, and all other sole copies kept in his office were stolen when it was burgled, no other items being taken. In 2005, Fergus Ewing, MSP, requested a meeting with Elish Angiolini, the Scottish Solicitor General, to discuss allegations that have persisted that Willie MacRae was under Secret Service surveillance at the time of his death. The request was rebuffed, with Angiolini claiming that he had not been under surveillance and that she was satisfied that a thorough investigation into the case had been carried out. However, in July 2006, a retired police officer, Lane Fraser, who was working as a private investigator at the time of Willie's death, claimed that he had been anonymously employed to keep MacRae under surveillance only weeks before he died. The death of Willie MacRae received further attention when the events surrounding it formed the basis of a broadcast of the STV show Unsolved, originally broadcast in November of 2006. In November 2010, John Finney, the SNP group leader on Highland Council and a former police officer, wrote to the Lord Advocate urging her to reinvestigate Willie MacRae's death and release any details so far withheld. Finney's request was prompted by the release the previous month of further details concerning the death of David Kelly. In January 2011, the Crown Office requested the files on the case from Northern Constabulary. Anyway. A Freedom of Information request was made to Police Scotland in 2014, which was eventually refused, even though a former Lord Advocate in 1985 stating there was no circumstances to warrant criminal proceedings. So the fact that there was no circumstances to warrant criminal proceedings and the fact that they are reluctant to hand it over, yeah, right. In 2016, the Herald reported that vital evidence related to the death of Mr. MacRae was no longer in their possession and that they cannot explain where the items have gone. Here is a couple of paragraphs from the article which can be found here. Death threat letter for ex-cop friend of SNP activist Willie MacRae. A retired policeman who was the last known person to see SNP activist Willie MacRae alive has received a death threat. Donald Morrison believes the chilling, ominous letter was linked to his campaign to discover the truth about the lawyer's mysterious demise in 1985. The stenciled message reading, "Let's hope the next victim of a police shooting is you," was posted from Glasgow to his home in Banffshire 2 years ago. Mr. Morrison has always maintained that he spoke with the 62-year-old in Glasgow city centre on April 5th of 1985, shortly before he left for the Highlands, and noticed he was being followed by 2 cars. The former Strathclyde PC said, "I have reported 2 incidents to the police, but there has been no interest to follow them up." Now it can be revealed that the .22 Smith & Wesson revolver found at the scene, said to be illegally owned by MacRae, has disappeared with no administrative record as to why it was discarded, where it ended up, or when it vanished. Other items recovered from the area and from MacRae's person whilst he was in hospital, including files which for many years were said to be linked to his anti-nuclear campaigning, are also no longer in the possession of Police Scotland. And vital forensic evidence to support the assertion that MacRae committed suicide does not exist. On top of the above mentioned thing there In 2017, just last year, a retired policeman who was the last person to see Willie MacRae alive has received a death threat. You can read it here. A couple of paragraphs from the article state, Donald Morrison believes the chilling anonymous letter was linked to his campaign to discover the truth about the lawyer's mysterious demise in 1985. The stenciled message reading, "Let's hope the next victim of a police shooting is you," was posted from Glasgow to his home in Banffshire 2 years ago. After filing a complaint with the police, the 74-year-old then began to suspect he was being followed and also believes his phone and email have been hacked. Over the years, with the discovery of North Sea oil and gas, the secret MacRae report, and the death of Willie MacRae in an apparent suicide, it makes you wonder why Scottish independence-supporting politicians are really a threat to national security, to the point the politicians of the day are targeted by spying and covert operations to keep Scotland's wealth secret. I'll let you make up your own mind. So that's this article, and that is what was going on with Willie MacRae. And I gotta say, I'm very, very interested to learn more about this, because this is absolutely bizarre. I mean, to call this a suicide is just, it's farcical. I mean, how are you gonna call it a suicide? Why? I mean, the gun being found 60 feet away. And then it was fired twice. But there's apparently only one bullet wound in Mr. MacRae's head. Yeah, it's just, this is bizarre. And then when you look at the fact that he was being specifically burgled, that his papers were being taken from his home, and that his briefcase and papers that were being held by Police Scotland, all this stuff, and the gun from Police Scotland, all goes missing, disappears. I mean, yeah, clearly. That's in 2017, too. I mean, that's the thing. That's in 2017. Clearly, Westminster is not prepared to allow Scotland to choose its own path. And I hope the Scots realize that it's necessary for them to do that, because Westminster is never going to ever be your friend. I believe once they've used up the oil and everything that they're able to make money off of, the extra money they give Scotland will disappear just as quickly, I'm sure. And then Scotland will be left flat and under the uncaring rule of Westminster. I mean, it will be like, it'll be 10 times worse if that happens, and I truly, truly hope that the Scots do something to prevent it. Okay, so that is part one of the very curious circumstances surrounding the death of Willie MacRae. Obviously, the other SNP, parliamentarian basically there, that was killed what was her name? The lady that was killed right around the same time. Had the burglary, just like he did, where just papers were taken. I mean, this is odd. This is odd that, you're getting burglarized, but nothing valuable is being taken. It's just papers, and stuff like that. So that's weird. The fact that his briefcase was never found, it was gone. It just, a number of things that are just very odd about it. And when you have the admissions about MI5 and that sort of stuff. So what I'm going to leave for everybody here is, down in the description, I will leave you a link to my video about the MacRae report. I will leave you a link to a video that I did that's been done by a very qualified mathematician and somebody who understands finance and reading the jurors, which the GERs, it's pronounced the jurors, and by interpreting those, and he's able to kind of illustrate if Scotland had been able to get independence around the 1980s when the oil was being discovered and that sort of thing, and what Scotland's financial situation would be and how different it would look if it weren't being managed by Westminster. So it's an interesting, thing. So I'll leave a link to that video as well down below. Like I said, Wrecking Crew, let me know if you guys are interested in maybe trying to take a look into this, if you're interested in it, into the true crime aspect of it, and trying to dig into what the truth is. And I mean, it looks like everything lines up and the dots connect for the fact that it was MI5, but it would be interesting maybe to look into it a little more. If you guys are interested, so let me know. Anybody there in the UK that can provide links that can lead to any more credible information regarding it are obviously welcome. So that's about it for this one, folks. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.